Broadcasting live and worldwide. Here's Brody Brazil.
All right, what you need to know first is that I highly debated even doing this podcast, even doing this YouTube video for two reasons. Number one, you can already probably hear it. I don't think I sound like myself. I haven't exactly been sick, haven't exactly been under the weather, but I have some type of sickness or condition that is congesting me. And it just loves to attack the vocal cords and how I sound. I don't think I look any different, but I definitely have been sounding different, and I hate that as a broadcaster. Your voice, to me, is almost everything, and it's not me lately, so I hate that. I would rank that among the top things that a broadcaster hates. Not sounding like themselves, or also maybe like blemishes on your skin, to be specific. Two things I just cannot stand. One of them makeup can cover. This one, all the tea and coffee and hot beverages and decongestants, is that a word? Whatever. All those things in the world can't really help me here. But anyway, onwards toward the video. And the other reason I hesitated towards making this is because we're looking at the Sharks now inside 10 days until the NHL's trade deadline. And anything I say here on YouTube and on a podcast, they live forever, despite what the Sharks will actually do. So again, full disclaimer here right from the start. What I say right now, just inside 10 days, is my best takes, insights, and partial opinions. And it may not be how it all plays out, but these are just the best things I'm feeling right now in terms of translating to you. So let's begin with this. 5 things you should know about the Sharks as they approach this trade deadline. Number one, there is not a glaring need for this team this season as there might have been in years past. And let's just go to last year specifically because that's most fresh. It was a Sharks team that was great defensively. They had lost Joe Thornton in the month of January, and by February, they were just looking for scoring. They needed to get their offense going. What did they do? They brought in Evander Kane. All he did was energize the Pavelski line, and that's how they went strong into the postseason. So they needed something last season. They needed offense, they needed a score, and they got it. But I don't see a whole lot of needs specifically this time around. And that goes with saying that we haven't exactly seen the Sharks really a lot of times at full steam this season. I mean, think about how many times in a course of the games we've seen so far with about 25 to play, how many times have you seen Thornton and Erik Karlsson and even a guy like Marc-Edouard Vlasic all healthy and in the lineup simultaneously? I mean, this Sharks group together didn't really get things going until about early December. I think December 2nd, that game in Ottawa, that was really a turning point looking back on this season. So again, it took a while for them to get going. We haven't seen a lot of them together, but when they have been together, when they have mostly been strong, I mean, they've put together a 7 and a recent 6-game win streak. And I just think that you look at offense, defense, and goaltending, and there's not a lot left to be desired. There's just that not that primary urge right now that's standing out like a sore thumb. I mean, offensively, you're looking at a goal-scoring team that's got 5 guys already past 20 goals, and Pavelski's already at 30. And pretty soon, you're going to have 11 different Sharks with a double-digit mark in goals. That's pretty impressive. No other team in the league can claim those kind of numbers. So again, the offense has been sharp. Certainly the biggest difference for this team when they play well is their defense. Like lately when they were allowing out of the All-Star break 2 and 2 and 2 and 2, you're going to win all those games. This is a Sharks team that's always going to score enough this season. But when they can allow the opponent to obviously 2 or less, what are they, perfect this season? 24-0 when that happens. So defense is the part that really has evolved. You hope that it can maintain a certain level of that, especially in the playoffs where it's all about defense. And I'll tie a lot of that goaltending conversation into the team defense stuff. When they play well, when the skaters play well without the puck, obviously the goalie looks a lot better as part of that. So again, not a huge glaring need even for the Sharks as they approach this trade deadline. So I'm here to say, if they don't do anything at all, I rarely say this, if they don't do anything at all, I think they're just fine. I think there'd be nothing to complain about if they do absolutely nothing. It's a rare thing that you would say that in professional sports about a team approaching a trade deadline. Everybody's always wanting to improve, but this team was so well built out of training camp and with a lot of resources down in the American Hockey League. They're looking strong even if they make 0 moves. All right, that brings me to point number 2. What we have seen in recent years from Doug Wilson, he's always an active general manager around the trade deadline historically, and that kind of makes you think he might do something. But a lot of the, quote, smaller moves that he's made in recent years, they have done big-time work. And let's just go back to James Reimer and Nick Spaulding and Roman Polak and even Eric Fehr last season. These are players that came to the Sharks for little or nothing in return. When I say that, I don't mean the Sharks didn't have to give up anything. They did. It was usually in the form of a minor leaguer or a draft pick, but they didn't have to alter their current team in order to get something of value back. And really, these were diamonds in the rough, so to speak. They all brought something depth-wise that the Sharks could use in those respective last couple seasons and playoff runs. So I'm also here to say that, as much as the Sharks don't have to do anything, there's no burning desire for any one area of this team, forwards, defensemen, or obviously goaltending is set. If there is something out there, and it does make sense, I'm not saying if you're Doug Wilson in the next week plus, put your hands over your eyes and, hum to yourself and pretend nobody else is out there. Like, if something presents itself, certainly you got to have your eyes and ears open, and you have to be able to execute on something that makes sense for you. And I'll get into what makes sense for the Sharks and what they're looking for in the next point here. But again, wouldn't be upset if they did absolutely nothing. In fact, I'd be excited about that. But also, sometimes you're going to hear them, in recent years make a trade that isn't a blockbuster or an acquisition that doesn't, seem to blow the roof off the place. But obviously, Doug knows what he's doing. He knows what he's looking for. He knows also the chemistry of what he's adding to his team. He's been big about that recently, too, saying that, whatever you do, whatever move you make, whatever you bring in, it has to fit not only on the ice, but the chemistry in the Sharks room. It's a great one there. It's well established, plenty of veteran presence, but you just want to make sure that what you're bringing in really enhances things instead of changes things. So number 3, what exactly are the Sharks looking for? I've already said that there's not one glaring need. It's not on defense. I could definitely say that. They have too many defensemen right now, which is a great thing going into what's hopefully a long and fruitful playoff run. I think, like a lot of other people are saying right now, it's a forward. It's a depth forward, specifically if it's a centerman that would give you a lot of versatility, a guy who could also probably play the wing as well, too. And I also think that you're looking for a rental in this situation. You're not looking to bring in somebody who's going to be around for 3 to 4 years, 2 to 3 to 4 years. You're looking for this season only. And I think that just makes sense with a lot of the Sharks' salary cap situation. They do have the money to do this. I just don't know if they want to commit to something right now, if that makes sense for years down the road. I think they're just looking at this season. And so as part of this, let's just go ahead and look at the big fish that everybody's talking about. Wayne Simmonds of the Philadelphia Flyers started his career as a King for, 7, 8 years now. I think he's been in Philly since 2011, 2012. I mean, everybody is hot on Wayne Simmonds. Me too. I would love Wayne Simmonds on the Sharks down the stretch and into the playoffs. Veteran presence adds depth. You have the feeling that, he's been around long enough. He's going to fit right in. He's going to feel the Sharks out, kind of slide into a valuable role with them. But the thing about Wayne Simmonds, and again, I'm on that train. I am on that train. He's 30 years old. He's only had 6 postseasons under his belt, and he only has a total of 30 games playoff experience. Now, he does have 15 points in those 30 postseason games, but we're not talking here about somebody that has been there, done that on an every year basis and so many years in a row. I mean, Paul Martin was a guy, for example, and the Sharks didn't have a great ending with Paul Martin, but in terms of when they brought him in, they talked about his playoff experience. That's a defenseman that had been in the playoffs every single season of his NHL career. That guy had a ton of playoff experience to fall back on. And again, I'm just saying here, as much as everybody's going to put Wayne Simmonds on a pedestal as the trade deadline approaches, and a lot of teams, not just the Sharks, remember what we're talking about here, okay? The value seems to go up and down and drastically change for a lot of these trade pieces. I'm just saying, and as much as I'd like to see the Sharks get him, remember exactly what you're getting here. Do the research on Wayne before you exactly go all in on this. But I really feel like that fits the role of what the Sharks would be looking for. Now, here's the big question. What exactly would this cost the Sharks? Think about this deal if you really want to make it. Again, we already told you who Wayne Simmonds was in terms of the playoffs and that type of experience. But if the Flyers were looking for an established NHL forward in return, as well as an up-and-coming, promising, let's say, defenseman, as well as a second or third round future draft pick of the Sharks, do you want to make that deal? Again, 2 players, a forward who's established, a promising defenseman who may have already broke into the league, but obviously is going to be an NHLer, and a future second or third round draft pick. I'm just saying hypothetically. I don't know that's what the Flyers want, but if that's what they want, do you want to give that up? Think about, I'm not going to mention the names. I'm not going to mention the name of the forward or the defenseman. I mean, there's a lot of them. You know them out there too. I hate speculating like that, so I'm going to stop myself short there. But I don't want to give up. There's a lot of young players for San Jose I don't want to touch. I want you to stay right put. Don't go anywhere. So I think that would be a deal breaker for the Sharks and Wayne Simmonds. I really do. I wanted to logistically think that out with you. And again, some other teams and some other players, not going to go into the speculation game with other targets for the Sharks, but they're going to want consistently stuff like that. Do you want to give that up to get a player like Wayne Simmonds for the final 20-something games and whatever in the playoffs? I don't know. So think about the mathematics on this before you go in on just making a big move because you think it sounds good. The fourth point I want to make here, it really goes to show you the youth and the talent still to come for the Sharks. What's with the Barracuda right now is so imperative, so important to the Sharks for right now and in coming seasons. And I say that because look at a couple clubs this time around, like Anaheim, like the LA Kings, and like the Chicago Blackhawks. Where did they go? How did they fall off the map and the standings so quickly? I mean, for years, it was the 3 California teams topping the Pacific Division, and now all of a sudden the Sharks are up high, and the other 2 SoCal clubs nowhere to be found. And I mean, they are having disastrous seasons, firing their head coaches, questions about trading players, and I mean all sorts of shuffling going on down there. And they may be several years away, both of those teams, from even being contending again. I mean, how about like Vancouver or Arizona? Are those 2 clubs even ahead of LA and Anaheim right now? Crazy to think that, maybe like 2 years ago, but it kind of feels like that's the case right now. So I just want to say, as much as we're going to talk about the Sharks and giving up young players and prospects, I mean, this is an area that has been so important to San Jose's success right now this season. That's why they're pushing for another postseason run and another shot at the Stanley Cup, because they brought up and harnessed the skills of Timo Meier and a Marcus Sorensen and a Barclay Goodrow. I'm just saying, you have to be aware of the value of your young players. And in situations like this, covet them, because if you're the Sharks, like if you're going to give them up, you have to get something extremely valuable in return. The Sharks' strong points, one of them, besides all the top-tier players they have in the NHL, are a lot of the talented young players still to debut that are in the AHL right now. All right, and last but not least, this might be one of the biggest things about February 25th. Not even the trade deadline for San Jose, but that also starts the clock on Erik Karlsson and the ability to sign a max duration 8-year extension with San Jose. He can sign 7 right now, but he cannot sign 8 per the collective bargaining agreement until after February 25th. So you'd like to think, going back in the prior weeks and even months, and even to when Doug Wilson went out to Ottawa to meet Carlson in person and trade for him, September 13th, can't ever forget that date, you'd like to think that a lot of stuff has been in the works. you'd also like to think there have been some indications that Carlson wants to stay in San Jose and that the Sharks are doing everything they can to retain him for the longest duration. And one thing is this. I know it's been curious, and Carlson, as I tape this, is set to debut tonight, come back after missing 9 games, but it's been a crazy situation that he missed a couple games before the All-Star break, participated in the All-Star skills competition as well as the game/tournament, but then missed a couple more games coming out of the 10-day break. Didn't make sense to a lot of people. So the question being, why would he participate in the All-Star festivities if he was truly hurt and, like Pete DeBoer recently disclosed, it was a groin injury? So I think, going back on this, there's a bit of a sign there. Would Carlson do all that? Would he put himself through that if he didn't really feel like he owed it to San Jose, if he wanted to be a good teammate, if he wanted to be a good Shark, and if this All-Star game were anywhere else in the country, if it were in Denver, if it were in New York, if it were in Tampa, if it were, you name it, Los Angeles, whatever, Seattle in a couple years, I don't think Carlson makes the trip. I think he plays the smart move, says, I wish I could play, but I'm going to rest. I'm out. Because it was in San Jose, because he's now a Shark, because he was named and he didn't want one less representative of his team to be there, he played through it. I'm not saying he was pressured to do it. I'm saying he probably just found the way to say, all right, I'm not going to go 100%. I'm going to nurse this thing, but I'm going to be there for the fans. I'm just saying I think that says a lot about his commitment to the team and where it's at right now. And you can read into a lot of other things both ways, but I feel like that was a big statement by him. I also want to say, as I close it out on the Carlson conversation, just for both sides to really make sure. He's had a test of time here in San Jose, and clearly his season, like the team season, took a turn early December. He really turned it on, looked sharp. Obviously, this injury set him back. I'm anxious to see where he is in this comeback of the groin injury. But also, if you're the Sharks, this is a heavy commitment, right? You've had all this season to figure out who he is as a person. Does he fit the room? Seems like he does. I'm not talking this down at all. I'm not talking against this at all. I'm just saying that all of you out there can relate to making a big purchase. This would be a big purchase, a big commitment for the San Jose Sharks. They will have never handed out a contract, what it seems like, the one they would give to Erik Karlsson in terms of duration or in terms of money every year. This is a big deal. So I just want to say, and I'm here to say, I hope both sides have truly felt this thing out and that there's no rushing to a conclusion here. But if they've found one, getting to the point of this, if they have found a conclusion already, I wouldn't be surprised. In fact, I'll be paying heavy attention in the hours, days, weeks, and probably not even months after February 25th, more like days or weeks, until we know something about the Carlson situation. And again, it doesn't have to come out on February 25th, but by March 3rd or 5th or 15th or 20th. You'd like to think that if a deal doesn't come out soon after that, you wouldn't like to think it, but you'd have to think that if a deal doesn't come out soon after that, that maybe it's not as close as you think. And that's not to say it's far off, but I'm very interested to know how close these two sides are, because after February 25th, I think we'll have a much greater indication. Also, this last point on Carlson, I'd be excited to get that deal done because now he's locked in and all the other dominoes can start to fall into place. You can then truly start to work on Joe Pavelski. He's set to be a free agent at the end of this season, as well as a couple other players that you could already start locking down as soon as the Carlson domino falls. So there you have it. 5 things to look at for the Sharks as they approach the February 25th trade deadline. Again, you might be watching this in retrospect. I could be completely right. I might be a little bit wrong about some things, but I wanted to just set the scene with this kind of briefing of where things are at, what to expect, and how the Sharks might approach it. Thanks for checking out this video if you're watching on YouTube, or podcast if you're listening right now. I truly do appreciate it. Find me on Twitter, especially during Sharks games, as well as Instagram, really working hard on there. And again, if you're listening to this only, check out my YouTube channel, really working on fresh content there. Until next time, I'm Brody Brazil, and yes, that is my real name.